What's up, YouTube, and welcome to a new episode of the Good Old Podcast. Before we get going, why don't you go ahead and like this video, like this channel, and click on the bell so that you can get notified whenever there is a new video posted. On this week's episode, like I promised, we're talking about Virginia football recruiting, and we have also a special guest. Highland Springs commitment Miles Greene will join the show and talk about the latest, not only in his season, but also what is he telling other recruits? What is his recruiting pitch? All that coming up. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Good Old Podcast. I'm Jackie Franchuli for Wahoo's 24/7, and just like I promised, on Saturday's episode, we are focusing on Virginia football recruiting on this episode. In the first half of the show, we're just going to break down some of the key names to watch moving forward. And as also, we'll take a look at some of the expected visitors already confirmed for UVA's big recruiting weekend against Miami, and also some names to watch for their game against North Carolina in 2 weeks, which we just found out will be kicking off at noon. Also coming up on the show in the second half of the program, we invited Miles Greene, Virginia commitment from Highland Springs, to the show so he can talk about his season so far, but also he can discuss who he is recruiting. And of course, there's some names that you already know that he's already in their ear. So first off, let's touch base on what is going on the recruiting front for Virginia football. I know there's a lot of conversation about where this class is ranked right at this moment. And I get it. But if you look back, I think in one of my first podcasts, I discussed that 2023 was always going to be tough for the staff. This is not a reflection on the recruiting efforts, but it's just a reflection of coming in late and also about just the situation around college football recruiting. So 2023 was always going to be tough for the staff. They were always going to have some late evals coming in, and there was always going to have some later offers. And to be fair, this always happens in college football. I think because of early signing day in the last few years, things kind of picked up a little bit more. But if you remember, even during Mike London's era at Virginia, when they were able to sign some pretty good classes, some pretty highly ranked players, he was still finding players. His staff was really good at evaluating. They were still able to find players towards the end of their senior season. Chris Peace was one of those guys. So don't discount guys that they find this year, especially when you consider the COVID year. A lot of these players have not camped as much. They have not been out much. Coaches have not evaluated some of these players. And again, Virginia coaches haven't evaluated some of these players because they couldn't go out because they weren't even here last year. So again, 2023 is going to be a question mark as far as how the staff handles recruiting. Now, 2024 and 2025, that's where this staff needs to be ahead of the game. This is where we can start grading their recruiting efforts. So before we get to those 2024s and 2025, let's take a rehash of what's going on as far as Virginia football. So on 24/7, we've had Virginia's evaluating. In the last few days, last week, UVA has started offering those players. Two names, well, actually three names that we have mentioned on our Cavs Confidentials a few times. One of them was Cedarian Harrison, that talented athlete out of South Carolina that visited Virginia in spring. We have been keeping tabs on him for the last few months, ever since that visit in the spring, because his recruiter was Virginia OC Des Kitchings. That was someone that Des Kitchings wanted to see how he handled the first couple games of the season. And then he was invited and he was scheduled a visit just a few weeks ago to that game against Louisville. So all signs pointed to an offer. An offer was extended. Now, other schools have come into the mix as well, including Oklahoma and Virginia Tech. But just as we reported on Wahoo's 24/7, he has locked in a visit to Virginia, an official visit, which is big. The other visits came in after that. So actually, he's locked in that visit while Virginia Tech offered, around the same time that Virginia Tech offered, then Oklahoma and Vandy offered him the last few days. So his stock is rising. Not surprising. He's a very talented guy. A lot a lot of staffs wanted to see how he handled the season and also wanted to see how tall he was. So that was one thing. He's going to be one to watch out for. Right now, as you can tell, I have a crystal ball pick in. I'm not as confident as I was right after that offer. The longer this goes, not as confident. But again, good news, he has locked in an official visit. Another guy that Virginia is looking at, they extended an offer to Isaiah Johnson. Also, another guy that visited during that weekend. He's a wide receiver or an athlete out of Thomas Jefferson. Before he transferred to Thomas Jefferson, he played a lot of DBs, but once he moved to wide receiver, that's when other schools came into the picture. He's another guy that has blown up. Not as confident with him. That's why I have not entered a crystal ball pick. Other schools are also in the mix, including North Carolina and Virginia Tech. This one's a wait and see. He's doing really well for his team here in Virginia. He's going to get more interest. Penn State is looking at him. Other schools are looking at him. This is not over. This is going to be a tough battle for Virginia to keep him home. So it's definitely one to watch. He is impressed by UVA's academics. A lot of these in-state kids love the idea of staying home. Will they stay home? That's another question. So Isaiah Johnson is one to watch as well if you look at the 2023 class. Moving forward, two other guys that we have told you that they've been evaluating. Defensive lineman Jason Hammond from St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We had heard that Virginia was evaluating him for the last few weeks. Almost at the beginning of the season, we heard his name mentioned a little bit among our circles and sources down in Florida that UVA was seeing how he does this season. He committed to Iowa State, I believe in March. So he's been, or I think it was March or last few months ago, he committed to Iowa State. Wake Forest was another team that he was interested in and was also recruiting him. He chose to go to Iowa State. I think Virginia has a legit chance of flipping him. Right now, he has a lot of wahoos in his ear. He has not only Dawson Alters and Blake Steen, both current wahoos and current offensive linemen on the roster talking to him, but he has his teammate right next to him, Takai Kirby. Obviously, you know who Takai Kirby is. He is Virginia legacy. He is on the same team as Jason right now, and he has definitely been in his ear. I think I quoted him in the story saying he is every day in my ear. So I think Virginia has a legit shot of flipping him. He really appreciated Kevin Downing being in South Florida last Friday night for his game. He really likes Virginia head coach Tony Elliott and what the program is doing defensively. Obviously, he watched the games. He saw the performance on Thursday night. So he's been pretty impressed by UVA's defense. So that's another name to watch. Another name to monitor in the next few weeks because he could be on grounds for that game against North Carolina is wide receiver Jaden Gibson. Jaden Gibson is one to watch. Now, he has broken several records in the state of Georgia, records that's been there for almost 5 decades. He broke a 49-year state record to become the state of Georgia's all-time receiving yards leader. He had 285 yards receiver in his team's 41-21 win over Elbert County a few weeks ago. So that means he had 4,535 yards for his career before last week's game. So that mark is higher now. So Virginia had offered him. Again, he was a player that, if you read my Caps Confidential, that Virginia was evaluating. There are several guys that Virginia has on their list that they're currently talking to. That goes with the transfer portal as well. If you are a Wahoo's 24 subscriber, you know every single name. So these are just the names that have come to the forefront because they've offered them. And that Virginia is now made it official, be like, listen, we want you to come to grounds. With Gibson, there are other teams that are flirting with him, but have not offered yet. It's still in a kind of a wait and see approach. He said that Clemson, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, and Louisville were some of the teams that were looking at him, but have yet to offer. But I have a feeling that that might change in the next few weeks. So this could be a situation where Virginia is in a good spot early, but they might have to push away a couple of other interests. He's currently committed to Georgia Southern. He has not decommitted. He said he likes how Georgia Southern's offense works, and he has not made any decision in regarding to that commitment. But the only thing he did say, he is trying to visit UVA. He said that he might try to visit for that North Carolina game. So we will be monitoring that, and we will keep you updated on that. We do have a preview usually before big games when big visitors are going to be on campus. So on ground. So I will have that preview on Wahoo's 24/7. So those are some of the big names right now in the 2023 class. Obviously, there are others that we discuss on Miles 24/7, but those are some of the newer names that have popped out from Virginia's latest offerees. Obviously, some of them have already committed, like that one South Carolina DB, Dalen committed, and obviously Trent Booker also committed to Virginia after they picked up an offer on their visits after Virginia was evaluating them for a few weeks. So again, this is kind of the pattern right now in 23. They evaluate, then they visit, they got an offer, and then they try to close as soon as possible. That has been kind of the trend of what they want to do. Now, moving forward to what can we expect the next 2 weeks here, because I know a lot of people have been underwhelmed by the visitor list, and I understand because, you want your home games to have big recruits, and the biggest recruits they've had has been Keyshawn Henderson, a 4-star athlete, obviously a big deal. They've also had legacy DJ Tolliver on grounds as well. Again, a big deal. But the lists have been underwhelming. You can't paint that different picture, especially when you look at what's going on in Blacksburg and which 2024 prospects have been able to get to Blacksburg. So I get it. I get why people are underwhelmed. But when you look at this slate, you're going to have some good games. You have Miami in town. You have North Carolina in town. You have Pitt in town. You have Coastal Carolina in town. This is when recruiting needs to pick up. This is when you start seeing how the staff is recruiting and what their efforts have been, what their efforts look like what is happening. Can they recruit? So this is where you start seeing if their plan of action is working. So right now we actually have a couple of guys that they are hosting. We have written a few of them, as if you're a Wahoo's 24/7 subscriber, you know that quarterback Christian Martin from Highland Springs, teammate Miles Greene that we're going to be hearing from in just a few minutes here. He is set to visit this week for the game against Miami. Another big target on the offensive side of the ball, wide receiver Chance Wiggins, is also set to visit this weekend. I think Virginia has a legit shot there. I think Virginia has done a good job of recruiting him and his teammate Mekhi White. Those two have visited UVA several times during the spring and also during the summer, but also they were there. One of the first weekends this whole staff was in Charlottesville back in the junior days in the winter. So these two are no strangers to Virginia. So Mekhi White hasn't set a visit yet at last check, but it doesn't surprise me they haven't visited yet because they need to visit other schools that they have not visited as much. So again, not as shocked, but it's good they need to be on ground. They need to be on ground during game day to see the game day atmosphere, to see all that before making a decision. So it's good to have them on grounds. Like I mentioned, Jaden Gibson, the 23 wide receiver, is either coming to the Miami game or to the UNC game, most likely to UNC game. Another guy that's set for the UNC game right now is safety and legacy Zaire Rayner. He says he is maybe going to that UNC game. Remember, he was meant to come for the earlier game against ODU, but had a family emergency and could not make it to Charlottesville. So he's expected to make the trip to UNC. There is a crystal ball pick to Virginia Tech, but he has no offer from UVA. If there is an offer from UVA, I don't think that crystal ball pick is going to stay there for too long. So that is something to monitor as well. As far as some other potential visits, there is also the trio of teammates from Phoebus who will be on grounds this weekend as well, including 3-star edge rusher Anthony Reddick. He is set to be on grounds as well. He will also have some up-and-comers, 2024 hybrid linebacker Tayshawn Stevenson, and also a big 2025 lineman Marcus Hobson will also be on grounds. Virginia is evaluating him. He likes to do some pancakes, so he's a big lineman to watch. Moving forward here. So those are just some of the names that we've already confirmed. We've reported these over the course of the last few days, over the course of the last week. So we are going to be reporting a lot more of who is meant to be on grounds the next 2 weeks as we move forward. So if you go ahead and head over to Wahoo's 24/7 to get that full coverage. And if you're not a Wahoo's 24/7 subscriber, watch out for our sale that we're just going to run at the end of the week. That's going to be 50% off annual subscription or $1 a month. That's a great price for what we're doing. We're also going to be counting down to early signing day. I expect Virginia to add a few guys before they sign prior to I think it was around summer. I heard they wanted to sign between 4 and 5 wide receivers. So they still need to fill that class. Obviously, with Mike Greene no longer part of the program, they need another edge rusher, another linebacker, which is why you're seeing more of those offers coming out. So expect maybe a linebacker in the state of Virginia to get an offer. Again, if you're a Wahoo's 24/7 subscriber, you know with every single linebacker that currently Virginia is evaluating. And there are some more that I've heard over the last 24, 48 hours. And I will have another Cavs Confidential at the end of this week, highlighting some of those new names to watch as well. After the break, just like I promised, we'll have Miles Greene on the show. So you don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the Good Old Podcast. I'm Jackie Franchuli for Wahoo's 24/7. And as you can see, I am joined by very talented Miles Greene, defensive lineman from Highland Springs, and of course, a UVA commitment. Miles, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, man. It's a blessing.
I see all those posters behind you. Some of them are probably like cards from coaches trying to recruit you. Does it feel surreal to you, your recruiting process?
It feels very surreal seeing it happen twice with both my brothers, and then now it's finally up to me. Now I'm up to the plate, and then I just filled those shoes, filled those roles, and now I'm committed to the school I've always wanted to commit it to. I got a whole wall over there in my closet. It's all UVA stuff over there, just right above my closet. And I look at it every night before I go to sleep. Like, it's so surreal seeing it every single night.
Does, when you got that UVA offer, because like you said, you had that whole corner of your closet with UVA gear, was it just like, man, I've been waiting for this moment? How did you hold yourself back from committing right away?
Oh, I was waiting for it for so long, and then when I got it, I was so happy. But I had to hold myself because it was a lot more recruiting to be happening. It was a lot more season. It was a lot more off season. There was a lot more visits I had to take before I could make my decision. But then when I took those visits in, I started to realize this is where I truly need to be at. That's why I just pulled the trigger.
And you did that during the summer, during one of your official visits in June. Since then, how much has your relationship grown with this Virginia staff?
It's grown a lot, actually. It's grown very much. It feels like a part of the team already. It feels like they already implement me in some of the schemes and stuff that they already have going on in this season. They keep me updated on what's going on and how the team is feeling and how they're working. Everything feels so great, and it feels stronger since then. It feels better. I feel like I know them more.
I'm guessing you talked to Coach Downing more out of the staff?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is something that stands out about him as a coach that you've already, like you said, they treat you as a player, so you're kind of seeing a little bit of his coaching style?
Man, one thing that sticks out a lot, he's more than just a coach. Like, he's a life coach. Like, he's going to coach you on the field, but he's also going to coach you off the field and teach you what needs to be done in the classroom, in life, and on the field, which makes you a better person that builds your character outside of football, but it makes you such a better football player knowing all this extra stuff.
And you have been keeping an eye on Virginia on Saturdays?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm guessing you saw them on Thursday night against
Yeah,
Georgia Tech and saw that great defensive front.
Yes, ma'am. That big win.
What did you see about the defensive line? Because my goodness, that defense played hard against Georgia Tech on Thursday.
It seemed like they wanted it. Like, they had the energy out there. They came out with that UVA swag to them, and they played hard. They hit first, and they asked questions later. And it seemed like they wanted that win more than the other team, and they came out there and they got it. All starts
How
up front.
exciting is it seeing how this defense has developed every single game, because you're going to eventually be part of it?
It's very exciting seeing how they've grown since the first game against Richmond to now. It's very exciting to see how much of growth they have had over all their practices and games and all the experience that their players are getting. And it's making me excited as a player to be able to go down there and try to fill my role and implement myself into their defense and keep going with all the momentum that they already have with their defense.
And we're talking, and obviously I still see your cast. What's the latest on your injury? Are you expected to be back? I know there's a big Verina matchup coming up in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, the team down the street. We play them in 2 weeks. I'm definitely going to be back that game. I'm coming back for senior night this week. I was supposed to be back earlier, but me and my coaches, we all came to the agreement like just rest it this week. Don't come back. It's okay, whatever. But now it's senior night. That's gonna be my comeback game. I'm gonna have a club. I'm gonna wrap it up, and then the week after, that's our rivalry game against the team down the street. We're gonna play them. We're gonna go down there. We're gonna show Richmond what Highland Springs is really about.
How important is it to leave in such a high note? I was there about a week and a half ago when I guys saw you guys in action, and it seems like you guys have this certain buzz about you, certain hype around this program right now.
It means a lot. Like we put a lot into this season. Like from 6 a.m. workouts to going in there lifting every single morning before school last year, and keeping that energy, keeping that momentum going till now, and nobody on the team quitting, and we all feeding off each other's energy. It makes each and every one of us better, and it makes us implement all the things that we do together onto the field. It's a lot of good chemistry and good people. All the people on my team deserve to be D1 athletes just off their character and how they treat themselves and how they are a team player and a football player at the end of the day.
There's a lot of D1 athletes in Highland Springs. It's college coaches are known to be on the sidelines watching y'all play. And there's one of the ones that is going to be at Virginia actually this weekend in Miami. Christian Martin told me that he's going to be visiting for the game. What's your recruiting pitch? I know I asked you about this when you committed. Have you been in his ear? Have you changed your recruiting
Oh
pitch a
yeah,
little bit to Christian?
I've been in his ear every single day, always telling him that he got a family at UVA. Man, me and Christian, we're pretty close. Like I talk to him every day, and I'm always telling him like, you come down to UVA, it's gonna be a family. We're gonna win. You're gonna be able to implement yourself into the team as much as you implement yourself into the team at Highland Springs. You're gonna love it. It's so amazing. Great environment, great coaching. Everything's amazing. It feels like home, and I know it's gonna feel like home for him.
I remember he camped after I talked to you about your commitment. So he camped at Virginia during one of those camps. Then a couple days later, took an unofficial visit where he got an offer. As soon as he got an offer, did you make a phone call?
Yes, right away. And I texted him. I called him. I was like, "This is where you need to be." I told you, like everything is going to line up for you to come here. This is where you need to be academically, athletically, in future life. Like everything is set up at UVA in their football program to make you become a better man later in life. It's to make you become the top football player that you can be in any Power Five program.
I feel like I could just clip that little video that you just did and I could just post it on UVA football's Twitter as a good recruiting pitch, Miles. That's how good that was.
Thank you so much.
How important is, when I look at this commitment list for Virginia, a lot of the guys are from the state of Virginia. Virginia really is focusing on keeping y'all home. How important is that for like the message of this is our state, we need to play for our state?
It's very important, man. Like, why not get the players that are in our backyard? Like, Virginia produces some of the top football athletes in America, and I feel like what most schools do wrong in Virginia is that they try to go out to other places and reach them instead of getting the good football players that they have in their own backyard. And what UVA has done so well is recruiting the football players in their backyard, getting all these commits from Virginia, as we say.
And apart from Christian Martin, have you been in anyone else's ear right now trying to keep them in the state or recruiting other guys to join you?
Yeah, got a guy named Noah Jenkins. I've been in his ear. George Lovelace. Those are two. Those are two people I can name right off the dome. Um, Jakari Henley. I've been talking to him. I've been talking to all our younger guys, and all our younger talent, trying to get them to realize like this is really where you need to be. And someone in my grade, Darius Taylor. I've been talking to him. I was like, yeah, like UVA has interest in you, and like they want to see you at their camps and that all their visits and stuff, so they can build this relationship with you. And I know like you're the athlete that we want to recruit. And I know if you was to come here, you would join me. We'll become some of the best teammates and some of the best. We will become the best team in general in college football if you join me.
Yeah, Darius already visited UVA grounds
Yeah.
before for a game, so maybe you can convince him to visit again.
Yes, that's what I've been trying to do. I've been convincing them to try to go to another game because I'm trying to go to another game. I've been trying to convince them to tag along with me. We go on a visit together.
So have you planned out when you're trying to visit, or are you just trying to see which home game you're trying to come to?
I'm trying to see which home game I'm trying to come to because like with this season in my hands and all the injury stuff and I just had surgery. Like I was supposed to go the day I had surgery. Well, no, I was supposed to go the day I got my injury, but that happened and they was like, just stay at home and rest. We'd rather you rest and come out here and do something that might make the injury worse. And I was like, yeah, y'all are right. So I stayed at home and now I've been trying to reschedule another day for me to come down there and meet with the staff again and be a part of the family again, like I love to be.
And then maybe drag a few Highland Springers to the games
Yes,
too.
yes, definitely.
Well, Miles, thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it.
You're welcome anytime, man. It's a blessing to be on this podcast. It's a blessing for you to have me here. Thank you so much.
And I'm excited to cover you when you're eventually in UVA uniform.
Yes, ma'am.
And thanks again for Miles for joining us on this show. It's always nice to have future Virginia Cavaliers on the program so that y'all can get to know them a little bit better. So, well, that's it for the show today. We'll be right back here on Wednesday for the takeaways from Tony Elliott's press conference, and then on Thursday where we preview the game against the Hurricanes. So thanks again for all of you that are watching. And if you want to continue to listen to this program, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to us wherever you listen to your podcast and over to Apple and Spotify so you can rate and review us. So once again, from Miles Greene, I'm Jackie Frenchuli for Wahoo's 24/7 and hope you guys have a great rest of your week.